Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today from London is Ara Iskanderian, a young member of the Armenian community, but more than that, a young elected member of government in the United Kingdom. Ara, thanks for joining us on CivilNet.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what you do. You're how old?
I'm 27 years old.
And you are a member of the Borough Council, a Borough Council in London. A Borough Council, I would say, is like a city council or a district council.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, yeah.
And how do you get elected to this Borough Council?
Well, you obviously do a lot of knocking on doors, a lot of kind of asking people for their votes, but you kind of enter the party politics of it as well. So
that's really what you got to do first. You have to enter a political party.
That's correct,
and
yes.
You're a member of the Labour Party.
I'm part of the Labour Party, yes.
I won't ask you why, because that's going to be a whole other 12 minutes. I think that's a fascinating discussion. But let's go back to just the fact that you're 27 and an elected member of a local council. How Armenians don't do that. You know, you're supposed to be running a store or becoming a doctor or something.
That's correct. I mean, I guess I'd kind of bucked the trend in the sense of I didn't go and open a store or become a doctor, although I have to confess I did later train as a lawyer. So
there you go. Okay, you're close.
My get out clause, if you like.
But you're in politics because you want to be.
I want to be in politics, yes. I enjoy it. I felt that I had a contribution to make. I feel that it's very easy to sit down in your home and complain. It's much more difficult to actually do something about it. And you know, when you wake up in the morning and get out of your house and you walk to the tube station in the UK and commute to work as you do, you see 100 things that irritate you or anger you, and you think, right, I can go home and I can complain, or I can do something about this.
You know, in order to do what you do, you had to A, get into the party, do politicking within the party, then you had to get on a list, do politicking for that list to win enough that you'd get a seat. And now, as a member of a governing body, you have to do more politicking.
To a degree.
Which really means that you understand give and take. What? How is it that you do what needs to be done given fiscal limitations, political limitations? What's the lesson that you've learned?
I think when you enter any kind of political domain, I mean, there's two groups of people. There's some people that would do it for the status, the ego trip, let's say, and that's always the wrong reason. And there's those people that genuinely want to help. And you can be naive about that, which I was definitely guilty of that in my case. And then when you enter that, you have to maintain sight that that's what you got in there for. And the biggest lesson that you learn, and you learn it very quickly, is you need to manage expectation.
Whose?
Both yourself, what you yourself are capable of, because if you don't, you burn out within 10 minutes. And that has happened with other people. And you also have to manage expectation of the people you're representing. You know, you can't do everything. You're not going to make paradise on earth. You know, that's just not going to happen.
You know, you're here in Armenia at a time when we're entering municipal elections in Yerevan. It looks like it's going to be an interesting contest because there are several parties with very interesting lists. At least the top of the lists are interesting. But we're doing that in a city where people don't quite understand how governance works. Is that something you could say even in London? Is that a regular problem? I
think it is a problem that people don't understand how governance works in the UK as well, and at a local level in London. I think part of the problem in the UK is people prefer to bury their head in their sand rather than be inquisitive enough to find out. It's always a case of what can I get me individually as opposed to caring about my community. And that has obviously repercussions as to what they understand by municipal governance. So that's what I would say about that.
And public opinion, does it matter at the micro-local level where you're at?
Definitely, definitely.
How?
Well, it matters insofar as if you're ignoring public opinion at that level, again, you shouldn't be in that position. You're not there because it's a status and it's nice to get recognized and have a title before your name. You're there, you should be there because you actually care about the people you're representing. So their opinion is what you should be listening to, reacting to, formulating your policy about. Otherwise, you're just dragging people kicking and screaming down a path that means something to you. And that's not worthwhile.
What's the role of money in political campaigns at the local level in the UK?
I think, obviously, money helps in every political context. I think, personally, in opinion and personal experience, starting with opinion, I think if you're relying on money, it says more about your inability to attract people, because it's very easy to pay and it's very easy to offer that financial incentive. What's harder
How do you offer that incentive?
Well, you know, in the UK it's slightly different. Obviously we have much more checks and controls, and I would, you know, forgive me for being brutally honest, and might exist here perhaps, but in the UK you could run a very successful advertising campaign and literally have 100 leaflets delivered through someone's door per day or whatever. You could do that, but obviously you then become beholden to the person that's giving you that money. You could also be much more worthwhile, and rather than pay for someone to deliver you a leaflet, go and knock on those 100 doors and speak to those 100 people, and on the doorstep sell yourself, as it were, rather than a glossy image of you in an action shot, let's say.
Iskanderian, the name was not a problem?
It was a problem, actually. It was. I'm not going to lie to you, it was. Even Ara was a problem. In fact, a lot of people believe my name is Ira, and some people think it's an acronym for an interesting organization.
Indeed.
Iskanderian, the biggest problem was it's kind of a misnomer to think that faith or religion doesn't matter in Britain. It is something that's important to a lot of people, and a lot of people assumed I was a Muslim in my case. Slightly Islamic sounding name. Which
would have worked against you.
In certain contexts it will work against you, in other contexts it works for you. But again, it's that taking the time out to speak to people. You know, they automatically assume something, but then it's an opportunity to say, no, I'm not a Muslim, actually, I'm a Christian. Actually, I come from this Christian culture, which, you know, will always tell you is the first Christian nation on the face of this earth.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity to actually speak to people. And again, taking that time out in a kind of didactic way, an educational way, saying, making that connection, explaining something, people appreciate that, and people are more amenable to your policies.
Are you second generation? You were born in Britain?
I was born in Britain. I'm third generation there. My grandparents came in the 50s. My grandfather was in the British Army in India. He came, at that time the British government had a policy of inviting people from the British Empire to come and work in the UK. He came through there. My grandmother the same, she came as a nurse. Last ship to go through the Suez Canal, actually, British ship to go through the Suez Canal before it was closed. On my father's side, I'm second generation. My father came in '79. He was actually exiled from Iraq. He was an officer in the Iraqi army when Saddam Hussein came to power, and he was very politely told to leave.
Are you an anomaly in the Armenian community? Is there a lot of Armenian community engagement in local politics? My experience is there usually isn't in any of our communities. There
isn't any engagement in local politics. There isn't even necessarily an engagement in national politics in the UK. There are a lot of people that would say that's the case, but from an insider's perspective that I'm able to enjoy, I'm very aware that what might appear to Armenians is actually, as actual engagement, definitely isn't. So I'm the first Armenian councillor, ethnically Armenian councillor in the UK. As far as I know, I'm the second democratically elected Armenian politician in the UK. The first was actually, we had an Armenian MP from India elected in the late 19th century. Ironically, he was kicked out for corruption, but we don't like to talk about that. But we've actually had an MP before, but between that anomaly in the 19th century and today, we haven't.
So we skipped a whole century there.
Yeah, we skipped a whole century, definitely.
Which is really hard to understand because, you know, we talk about the UK, and if not the first sentence and the second sentence out of our mouths is, you know, British Petroleum and the oil interests. And so, of course, the UK is not the most fertile ground for Armenian political interests. But I can't imagine that that's not at least half excuse, not just reason.
I think that's more than half excuse. I think that's, I would go as far as say that's 100% excuse. I think if you'll pardon me for being so blunt, I think that, yes, there's a lot of commercial interests. You're obviously alluding to that, BP of Azerbaijan. There are a lot of commercial interests there, but there is a huge interest, actually, in Armenia, politically, communally. I mean, people know about Armenia. People can tell you certain facts. There's certain kind of soft power characteristics, like System of a Down, you know, are massive. I recently went to a gig, and it was quite interesting to see a bunch of English people coming out singing, you know, singing Pluck or some of their other songs. So people are aware of that, and people are keen to know more. And I just think that Armenians, for whatever reason, and I have my own opinion there, are not capitalizing upon that. Let's be honest about one other thing. Yes, there's a huge commercial interest in Armenia's neighboring country, Azerbaijan, from a particular industry and whatever comes on the back of that. But the UK, just like any other society, I believe is similar to the US, people are concerned about business lobbies. So it's very easy to say that, but it's also worth bearing in mind that people don't like the fact that there is an oil company effectively, you know, lobbying or doing stuff on behalf of another country. They don't like that. It's very easy to counteract that if you're inclined. The other thing I would add, like recently an article appeared in the UK whereby somebody made the very prescient point that British people should care about what happens in Armenia and Azerbaijan regarding Nagorno-Karabakh, because that pipeline is 70 miles from the front line. A lot of pensions are pegged to BP shares. You know, if something was to happen tomorrow, a lot of people are going to lose their pensions in the UK. So there is an interest.
We're going to watch you.
Thank you.
Ara Iskanderian, member of the Labour Party and elected member of a borough council in London. Thank you for joining us on CivilNet.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And thank you for watching CivilNet.